So today I was studying and meditating on the concept of dead ends. And dead ends are thought patterns and cycles that really lead nowhere. They don't really help you. And in fact, they can hurt you because they can put you in a place of worry or stress, like unnecessarily. This is a really good topic for me right now because I've always been a bit of an analytical person. Being this kind of person has led me to a lot of success because it allows me to process things very deeply. It allows me to think of many different scenarios and play them out in my head, which really helps with problem solving. It helps with entrepreneurship. It helps with like all kinds of things when it comes to planning and organizing. But at the same time, like they say, too much of anything is not good for you. So there are places. Oh, the other thing too is that everything has its pros and its cons. So the thing I realized is that the con of being that kind of deep problem solver, that kind of deeply analytical person, is that it can cause you to get into some patterns and some cycles of thought that wind up bringing you a lot of stress. So one way that that's played out in my life currently, and why I'm even grateful for the subject of dead ends and meditating on it, is that, you have a couple categories of things. You have things that you can work out and that you have within your power to sort through. And then you have things that require patience, like maybe they'll work themselves out over time, maybe even as far as your plan of action, they'll work themselves out over time. But you can't think about them every day and play them out in your head every day because of the third scenario, which is there might not be anything you can do about those things in the moment. So for me personally, when I relate to things that are either not comfortable for me or I want a different outcome or different scenario, I want things to be different, I could continue to go around in my head over and over about the same scenario, playing out how I feel, and especially when it's feelings of discomfort is not good. But my mind is so used to doing that I do it during my waking hours. I do it during sleep, which is something that I just realized recently that had like really, really took me it took me aback because I was like, wow. So playing out of these cycles, the way that Joseph Goldstein described it was being able to label them as dead ends and catch them before they start, or catch them, mid loop, or just start realizing how you do that currently and, working towards stopping that kind of loop. And so I thought that was really helpful. What he basically said was, you meditate on, you first allow yourself to just breathe, and you allow to come to mind whatever will come to mind. And you start to notice your patterns of thinking. So you just take like inventory, you observe where your mind goes first. Chances are your mind is going to go to the things that you worry about on a day-to-day basis. For me, it's been health, it's been finances, it's been, debt and sorting through things, it's been living situation and just all kinds of things. And since I'm naturally a problem solver, those things come to mind first. So he said, take note of those things and sort through those ideas to see which are the ones that just continue to repeat in a cycle and give you certain feelings, and they don't really lead to anything. They just are like you rehearsing. That's the other thing too I realized about myself is, and again, it's helpful in places where you need to think of like all the different possible scenarios and hypotheticals, but it's terrible when the things you're thinking about just are not good. And if you overall are not feeling good or dealing with anxiety or stress or depression, like it's not good. But I would play out scenarios in my head of things that maybe it was a conversation with a person, or maybe it was me thinking about an appointment that I had and all the ways that it could go. And then I would start thinking about all the outcomes naturally because I'm trying to stay aware. But for the outcomes that weren't so good or that were unfavorable, I would not only play them out, but then I would rehearse how I would feel or how I feel about that. And I noticed myself going into these places of deep emotion around things that just weren't even happening yet. Like they were just hypotheticals. They weren't even real. So that is something that I've always been a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. So I haven't really had an issue with that in the past. But currently, like I said, when you're dealing with certain scenarios and situations, like that kind of processing can be unhealthy. And I realized that I was doing it to a point of, even while I was asleep, my dreams would be playing out in that same way where my brain is constantly going. And I'd be thinking about these scenarios. I'd be falling deeply into the emotion of how it makes me feel. And then even when I would wake up, and this was the real telling factor, even when I woke up and was aware of the fact that I was dreaming, I would still have the full emotions as if it was real. And that would be more real to me than the reality that this thing wasn't real. And it was just because of my level of sensitivity, dealing with anxiety and dealing with certain things in my life that caused me that kind of, those kind of feelings. I realized my place of sensitivity now would pull me into these deep places of emotional loops, and narratives that I'll be sitting there saying to myself, like, this isn't real, but the overwhelming feeling, because of being so sensitive, would be even more real than the reality, like the true reality itself. So this concept of dead ends is really helpful. I'm looking forward to applying this regularly. He showed you how to apply it in meditation, like with the practice I did this morning, and then also how to just apply it as you're going throughout your day and as your mind is just processing different things and handling different things. Like if you know that something isn't going to lead to a solution that's healthy or helpful, or something that you can't control or you have to be patient about and just, work with it until things change, you have to call it a dead end, and you have to stop your thoughts at that point, or at least call it out so that way that'll help you stop it. You'll realize it's a cycle that's about to happen, and it'll just keep you just from going down this never ending loop, so that's the thought and the meditation for today. Again, just to say a few things before I close this video. This is from the course called 10% Happier, which these are meditation courses all grouped into one, big course, one big program, if you will, one big experience. And it was created by Dan Harris, the news reporter, who had a panic attack on ABC News, and that led him to this path of meditation and learning about the mind and all of that kind of stuff. So 10% Happier is an app that you can download right on your Android or Apple device. And it's really great. It has a lot of different contributors and a lot of different aspects to this app. There's lessons and courses and tips, and it even tracks your progress. So I highly recommend it, and that's why I'm doing this journey, because there's so much there, and I love learning, so I just figured I'd document my process. And lastly, in the background, what I'm playing is my version of my contribution to all this meditative work. And this is from my project, Key Reflections, and it's called Contemplation. And I'm looking forward to being a contributor, even with this 10% Happier journey. I'm going to reach out to them and try to even offer my music. And just in general, I'm looking forward to being a contributor. So if you like this and you want to hear more, you can go to my website, aaronhilltv.com, and click on the music tab, and it'll take you to my music, and you'll see Key Reflections. So that's about it. So thanks so much for joining me for this journey, and join me for day 3 after this. And I'll be continuing in the phrases of stress course. So thanks so much for listening and watching. Peace.